Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Grief and the Holidays workshop. I'm Kelly Kraft, Program Manager at Gildas Club Quad Cities, and I am lucky enough today to be here virtually with Lisa and Kate of Genesis Hospice. So I'm going to let them take it away.
Well, thanks for having us, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. I'll introduce myself first. How's that? Is that okay? Yes. My name is Lisa Levy, and I'm a grief counselor with Genesis Hospice Grief Support. I'm also a hospice nurse. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have my 19th anniversary, my 11th anniversary next week on the 19th. How about that? 11 years with hospice. But so we have a wonderful team here at Genesis Hospice, and Kate is my colleague that I work with every day. So go ahead, Kate.
Hey everybody, my name is Kathleen Bowman, and I've been working in hospice for 12 years. We've been kind of on the same path together, and I have the blessing of working with Lisa every day. And we're so privileged to come to you this evening, hopefully to be of help to you as you're navigating the holiday season during this tender time.
All right, are you ready for me to pull up that PowerPoint?
We are ready.
Perfect. Let me just share my screen here. All right, can you see it okay?
We can, yes.
All right, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, the title of our program here this evening is Grief in the Holidays, Navigating the Holidays. We know that this is a very tender time for people, especially experiencing the first year after the death of their loved one, and certainly the holidays bring up a whole variety of challenges and emotions. So we want to talk to people about that tonight.
Yeah, they really do, because this is a time of gathering with people that are most dear to us. And of course, we have this sense of who is not present with us. We really want to give you some information that we hope that is of comfort and benefit to you.
So we have a few objectives tonight. And in broad strokes, we're going to be talking about what is grief, just kind of defining what we're talking about.
The top 10 holiday strategies to be of benefit to you.
What does healthy grief look like during the stressful time of the holidays? There's so much to think about as we're moving from Thanksgiving into the Christmas season. And there's certain things that we want to keep in mind.
And then, of course, tips for coping. We want to give you some things you can actually put into place that will be of help.
Hey, quick question. Kate, can you speak up a little bit more when you're talking?
Sure, yes.
Thank you.
And then we'll close out our time together with questions, any comments or stories folks would like to share.
Perfect.
So what is the definition of grief? Grief is a natural emotional reaction to a significant loss. Sometimes people are so surprised by how they react when someone close to them dies, and emotions can be very powerful. And they come to us just full of so many questions, and they cannot imagine that they would ever experience such a depth of grief. So, but grief is an emotion. Emotions are tools. And so grief is telling us that something is going on, something is wrong, we've lost someone close to us.
And to tie into that too, one of the most beautiful things about this life journey is our capacity to love. We're designed for love, belonging, and connection. And because of that profound love, we are going to experience profound loss, like you're mentioning, Lisa, and how that impacts us in significant ways, affecting mind, body, and spirit.
Right. Because we, at hospice, we work from a very holistic perspective of mind, body, and spirit, and everything is connected and integrated. And so we will be talking on all of those levels as we move through the program. Okay, our top 10 holiday strategies. The very first is to really acknowledge and own the idea that this year is going to be different than any other year because your loved one is gone. Sometimes we like to, when things get too painful, we stuff our emotions, we ignore them, we try to gloss over them, and that's not healthy. In grief work, we will often say that we want to push through the grief. You can never go around your grief because grief is very patient and it'll just sit there and wait for you. It will until you're ready to face it, you know. So that seems kind of strange to say. We'll acknowledge that this year will be different, but in fact, sometimes it's very difficult to own the pain that you're experiencing and all the change that the loss brings.
And we do our best to cope with the reality of what it is, but it's really important for us to turn toward our sense of loss and grief. It's really turning towards our love for the other and being very intentional and tending to our mind, body, and spirit, as I mentioned earlier. And of course, the second one we're going to be looking at is expectations around the holidays. I mean, we often have a sense of what we've done throughout the course of time that's been meaningful to our families. But as Lisa had indicated, things are going to be markedly different this year. So we're going to be talking about how maybe reevaluating what we wish to do and what we have the physical and emotional, spiritual energy to do this year.
Right.
So that's going to be very, very different.
And being realistic
Yes.
is really critical, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, especially if you've never faced a profound loss before, or if perhaps you have lost a child or a spouse. Those losses can be very, very profound and run very, very deep. So we need to be really realistic about our expectations. Number 3 is accepting your feelings. I run into quite frequently people who are so hard on themselves and they're so surprised by the depth of sadness that they have, and they think just 3 months after the loss they should be over this, or 6 months. And there's a real strong phenomenon where you have a loss, and early on you have these very raw emotions. Then things kind of level out a little bit, and then maybe come the 9, 10 to 12 months, you really the bottom sort of falls out, and you're just so sad all over again. But the reason is now you've been living with this loss for a good amount of time, and now you really know what it feels like, and it's painful. And in the beginning, you're numb, but you know we know that grief is always very much up and down, up and down. So you need to accept your feelings wherever you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes we try to be superhuman, and we have these expectations of ourselves that we should be in a different place than what we are. And sometimes we'll compare ourselves to other people and what they might be experiencing in relationship to love and loss. But it's important to pay attention to the wisdom of what you are needing, you know, and tending to your own experience of loss.
Number 4, you want to take that one?
Memories are a bridge to our loved one. As we were talking a bit before about how we're designed for love, belonging, and connection, and our memories are very much a part of the narrative of our life, and they're very, very important to us. I mean, those that we love, they're marked in our hearts forever. We really want to stay connected to those memories and that connection, because death does not have the power to destroy love at all. So that will continue to be a part of us.
That's right. And again, early on in that raw new grief, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, which we consider early new grief, the memories can be a real sense of sadness, of course. But over time, the power of the grief softens some. And as you are able to deal with all of the levels, mind, body, and spirit, and have had more experience coping with the emotions and the effect of the sadness, the memories become a great sense of joy and healing. So we don't want to be afraid of the memories. We want to think of them as a bridge to our loved one. Yeah.
That connection, that ongoing connection is so important.
Yes. Yeah. Of course, number 5, I love that word balance. Kate and I are always stressing balance in the clients that we work with and their families. Oh my gosh, there's such a fine line between isolating yourself, and just running yourself ragged until at the end of the day you drop. Neither is good. So we are always seeking balance. We are allowing the emotions, recognizing that they're going to wear us out and make us very tired. And so we do need quiet time alone, but we need the support of those around us to kind of buoy us, lift us, carry us, support us. But you can't run yourself into the ground, because if you do that, you're not allowing that time to process your grief.
Right, because again, it affects this mind, body, and spirit, and grief is physically exhausting, emotionally exhausting, as you can attend to. So there is that balance between a time for reflection, time for rest, but also be connected with others, because that is our source of comfort and strength often. And if we isolate too much, that can really keep us anchored in our grief and in our suffering. And there's going to be emotional discomfort in our sense of grief, but we do not have to suffer.
Right. This is a really, really important point, everyone. Kate brings up this idea of suffering. Now, if you do not deal with your grief, unpack it, learn about it, let it teach you, your grief can begin to torture you. And we do not want what is something to be normal and healthy torture you. And so isolating yourself is not good. Running from your grief is not good. So
can you revisit again about how emotions are tools
yeah,
for us?
Sure. When we're grieving, there is such a wide array of emotions that we experience: ups and downs, moments of peace. Eventually, we find moments of joy, bright spots in our day, some guilt, regret. But the way we look at emotions here at Grief Support is that they are simply tools on our life tool belt that tell us what is going on with our head and our heart. And we use a phrase, reaction versus response, all the time around here. So reacting to our emotions means that, when something happens, obviously we have just a spontaneous reaction to it, and that's good.
And that's early grief, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. And so we accept that for what it is. But over time, as we're processing our grief and becoming more savvy and experienced in managing our grief, we are able to stop, filter our emotions through our brain, and then consciously decide how to respond. So we have an emotional reaction versus a well thought out response. And so emotions are not bad, they're neutral. They're telling you, hey, this is what's going on in your life right now, but let's use it as a tool to then decide what is the plan going to be to help us respond. Okay. Good thought.
Okay, as far as the next strategy, again, we want to reevaluate the holidays. And you're going to be thinking about what you've done in the past, but as we've been talking about, everything is different this year because of this sense of grief and loss and who is not present with you. So it's going to be very important for you to reevaluate what your holiday might look like.
Right.
You might be doing something entirely different, and then discuss that with your family. But again, it's going to be based on your emotional, physical energy, and just to look at that and see what's most important to you.
Yes. And we don't want to try and do it all.
No.
We don't want to do it by ourselves without help from others. So it is a real conscious decision to sit down, be with your family and those closest to you, your friends, and make a plan. And we're going to talk a lot more about that here shortly.
Yes.
And oh, hey, here it is.
There it is.
Number 7, plan ahead and prioritize. This is really critical to our success, isn't it? We want to really kind of take apart those meaningful parts of the holidays and decide what's most important, and then make a plan around maybe 1 or 2 of those important aspects, and then go from there.
Yes.
But to try and think it's like it's going to be the same, or we still want to cling to old traditions when there's no way you have the emotional, physical, spiritual energy to begin to do that, is really setting yourself up for failure and maybe disaster. And we don't want that.
And the rules are, there are no rules. It's really to personalize it and make it work best for you.
Yes. Well said.
Okay, and the next one, again, about knowing your limitations and really maintaining good self-care. Because we don't want you to be depleted. Of course, you want to tend to your mind, the body, and spirit, whatever that is for you. Surround yourself with love and support. Because holidays can be a very stressful time anyway, and there's just another layer of stress associated with the grief that you're experiencing as a result.
Right. You cannot ever underestimate the power of stress on your body. And emotional stress, especially when it's not well attended to, really depletes us. So we're always reminding our clients, our families, we're asking them, are you taking plenty of fluids? Are you exercising? How is your sleep? How is your appetite? And so on and so forth. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. Number 9, this is so important. No man is an island. Please, please, please allow others to support and help you. Grief is often spoken of as the final teacher. Death and loss, grief. And so there are many who have gone through this experience before us. So why not learn from them? We know that death and loss teaches us many things about life. It teaches us about our own limitations, our own priorities. So when people have their journey to share or want to help you, even in the smallest way, please let them help you.
And we really need one another in this life, even in imperfect situations, but especially when we are hurting. So it's really important to allow people to love and support you, accept that support. But also what you mentioned about this being a great teacher, that grief is a great teacher. You at some point probably already have a heightened sense of empathy and compassion for others. So based on what you have learned about love and loss, you're able to share that with others to be a source of comfort. And we always feel really good if we can be helping one another.
Right. Some of our greatest healing is going to come from going outside of ourselves. Yeah.
Well,
Do you want to speak to the last one?
Yes, having an attitude of gratitude. And when we're talking about this grief as being a teacher, what I think it does, it really shifts our perspective again, what you're saying about what is of greatest value and importance. And something that we've learned in hospice, that all that really matters, that we often talk about, is how we love, who we love, who is in our lives, what is most important to us. So I think this really shapes that perspective in a deeper level of having a sense of extraordinary gratitude. And I will often tell people to do their best, even amidst their sadness, when they wake in the morning, to try to be mindful of some sense of gratitude that they have for the day. It could be a loved one. It could be the beauty of the sunshine. It could be many, many things. And also before they go to sleep at night, to either call upon that same gratitude, or maybe they have another one that they've experienced. So I think that really helps shape our heart, the condition of our heart, if we can maintain that attitude of gratitude.
Yeah. Oh, you said the word. Did you hear that? Attitude,
Mhm.
attitude. Really important.
It is.
Our attitude on our grief journey makes all the difference. But now don't misunderstand me. We're not saying that you cannot be sad, but we do not want people to despair and become hopeless. But we have to really often look at what is our attitude. And when we hit a bump in the road or the bottom falls out, we can step back and try and identify what's the key issue here, and how do we make maybe an attitude adjustment? How do we make a plan around what the new need is? But we are always really trying to key in, how can I have the most appropriate and best attitude in the situation?
Yeah, and trying to do your best to hold both realities of honoring your heart in this aspect of love and loss, but trying to have some degree of hope.
Right.
And really, our thoughts influence our emotions, which influences our behavior,
Right.
and our overall state of well-being. And that's not to discount this extraordinarily difficult and sad time for you, but just try to be mindful to hold both realities and the power of our thoughts to influence that. And if you're having a really tender day, please reach out for support. There's many people here to support you and companion you during this time, whether it's at Gilda's Club or ourselves in your peer group. We don't have to do this alone.
No. Very good. All right.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is a set of questions, and we'll ask a question, and there'll be a series of choices, and then we'll go over the answer to the question. So our first question is about kind of self-care, fatigue. So friends and relatives are asking you to a holiday party and various get-togethers. If you're tired and you don't feel up to the social scene, what do you tell them?
You lie, put a smile on your face and say, sure, why not?
You could say yes, but then cancel at the last minute.
You say, no, thank you. I appreciate the offer, but not this year.
Or you could avoid friends so they don't ask.
What do you think?
That's not really a great choice, is it? So of course the answer then is C. You say, no, thank you. I appreciate the offer, and I'm going to pass right now. As Kate mentioned before, there are going to be times when your grief and sadness really wear you out. And we are big believers in power naps and taking time out in your day to just rest, but do not overdo it. And your friends and family will understand if you're not up to it.
Right. Just be really transparent with what you're feeling emotionally, or if you're depleted physically. It's okay.
It's okay. And another thing to remember, if you're going to an event and you're not quite yourself, go by yourself, drive yourself, so that you don't, if you're ready to leave, you don't have to depend on your ride to get you back. When you're ready to leave and they're still having an enjoyable time and want to stay longer. That's a strategy we often share with our bereaved. Drive yourself, and then when you're ready to go, just politely say to your host or hostess, thank you for having me. I think I'm going to step out now. I'm tired or whatever, and they'll understand. So.
Yeah, and that's a nice balance of taking time to be connected with others, but also honoring if you need additional rest.
Right.
That freedom to be able to drive and leave when you need to.
That's important.
Empowering.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, the next one speaks to traditions. Okay, old traditions can bring comfort, but they also can bring pain. What should you do with the traditions?
Well, do we keep all of them because they're traditions?
Or do we decide which ones to keep and which ones to let go this year?
Do we get rid of them because they're now about your past?
Or avoid making any decisions about it whatsoever? No decision is still a decision,
It is.
but there's a better answer.
So when it comes to traditions, we know we're going to decide which ones to keep and which ones to let go of this year. And again, this really comes down to good communication with your family, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah, I mean, talk to those that you'll be celebrating the various holidays and just decide together, especially if you have the kids or the grandkids. And maybe, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but those traditions that maybe honor your loved one who has died, maybe you would want to focus on those, you know, or whatever is doable.
Yeah, whatever maybe if your loved one found joyful about the holiday, you might decide to maintain that tradition,
Right.
which can create that connection.
Right.
But you know, in your family, I anticipate everyone is grieving the death of your loved one, largely in different ways probably, but it's really important to communicate where we are emotionally and, you know, just to really help one another and make those decisions together. And also in doing so, talking about our feelings of love and loss, that will really open up space for others to share their feelings and lend just to healing as a family.
Yeah, that's a great point. We have in the middle our loved one who has died, and we have those closest to the person, and they're going to grieve a certain way. Friends in the next outer circle are going to grieve in a different way. People in the community, maybe work family, are going to grieve a different way, and so on and so forth. So you have all of these individuals, even within the same family, who are grieving in a different fashion. So in these instances, you cannot over communicate what the needs are, what you want to do or don't want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Look at this. Okay, if you have a Christmas tree or other holiday symbols, should you put it up? What about tree decorations?
Oh, well, it is the holiday, so of course you put it up.
Or take a family vote and put it up or down depending on the family's wishes.
See, why put it up? It means nothing to me now.
Or D, only put them up if the specified mourning period is passed.
We get a lot of questions about the Christmas tree in these projects. So the correct answer then would be kind of related to what we just said, is to talk to your family. You know, putting up a tree or some of the other pretty involved traditions take a lot of energy and maybe take 2 or 3 or 4 sets of hands. So you would need a buy-in and people working together to accomplish that task or tradition. So take a family vote, talk about it, figure out what you can do, and be honest about how you're feeling and what you want to do. You know, it doesn't serve anybody if you're putting on a face and pretending.
No.
And again, you have to be transparent and open and honest about your grief. You know, so yeah. Self-care. Which of the following are healthy activities to do while grieving during the holidays?
So A, drinking alcoholic beverages to excess, because who cares?
Overloading on holiday sweets because it'll help you feel much better.
Momentary help. Eating food that isn't high in sugar, sleeping normally, and drinking plenty of water. What do we think?
Well, I vote for C.
Yes.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, because too much alcohol is not healthy. It's not safe. It makes you sick. Too many sweets is not healthy. It makes you sick too. It's just, it's not good. And we don't want to eat or drink our emotions away. We want to be healthy in dealing with our emotions and There's nothing wrong with treating ourselves. But again, always seeking balance.
And that's the thing
Yeah.
about alcohol. It might seem like it's numbing our feelings a bit, like we might feel better, but alcohol is, of course, a depressant. So it's going to deepen our sense of emotional pain. It also affects sleeping too, can
Right.
create insomnia. That's a habitual pattern that we have. So
Right.
really be mindful of that.
Right. And again, please make sure you're taking plenty of fluids. Dehydration among people who are mourning is very, very common. You're lethargic from your grief, you're tired from your grief, you don't want to drink the water, lemonade, whatever it is you drink, healthy fluids. And so you become dehydrated, which only compounds the situation because you're more tired. That makes you more lethargic. You can suffer from urinary tract infections. Your risk of constipation goes up. When you drink plenty of fluids, you are more energized, more alert. Your joints feel better. We just cannot stress enough taking plenty of fluids. Keep your glasses of water or your thermoses out and around and with you all day long.
The wisdom of the nurse. Yes. Okay, the next one ties into tears. What do you do when you start crying at a holiday function?
Find a quiet place and let yourself cry. There is nothing to apologize for. Crying actually can make you feel better.
Okay, the next option is duck your head in shame and shy away from people.
C, wish the group would open up and swallow you.
And the last one, don't go to holiday functions. You will only depress other people.
Oh my gosh, I hate that last choice.
Yeah,
that's so bad. So, what do you do when you start crying at a holiday function? We talk about this constantly with our bereaved, constantly. And my goodness, that answer is A. Oh, please allow yourself a good cry if that's what you need at that moment. And seriously, if you find yourself in a vulnerable place and you go to an event, even if it's among close family and friends, and you feel very vulnerable and maybe extra kind of emotional, say to your host or hostess, if I need to step away for a moment, could I maybe sit in another room or sit out on the patio? Or what is your plan going to be? Also, always bring Kleenex to share with those around you and tell them, you know what, I might have a few tears, but it's okay because we can cry together. And here's a Kleenex.
Very proactive.
Right? Take charge of the situation. Here, crying is good. That's what your body does to manage the stress. So allow your body, allow yourself to do something that's very natural and necessary. Right?
Yes, it's a natural emotional reaction.
Another tool.
Yeah, and a way to process your feelings. So just know it's normal. And in that way, when people see us crying, the tendency is to offer comfort, care, and support. And who doesn't need that? Always.
Right. And by being transparent with your emotions and by crying, what are you doing? You are being a healthy role model for how to grieve in a healthy way. Of course, you're going to be crying. Of course, those little dark clouds are going to come all of a sudden and pew, here come the tears. Who cares? It's okay. You're healthy, you're grieving. And it often kind of opens the door for people to kind of expect and accept the obvious.
And to remember your loved one, maybe. Talk about your loved one.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit too about grief bursts as well, and how when we have those momentary periods of crying, it's a way of that love breaking through. So that's something beautiful that we can honor. So we're teaching people what it is to love deeply, love well, but also to grieve well and healthy.
Right. Because if you love deeply, you hurt deeply.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. That's the privilege of loving. You know, it is, as Kate often says, we honor our loved ones by our tears. So please think of your tears as something very healthy, and don't ever apologize for it. No. Okay, accepting support. Friends and family do not always know how to tell each other what they're feeling or what they need when grieving. Okay, and it works on both sides that way. The person who's grieving and who's had the loss doesn't know if they should share what, you know, their feelings with their family. The family and the friends don't know if they should even bring it up or talk to the bereaved, the one who's grieving. So what do? Well, you can ask for help when you need it and try and be as specific as possible about your needs.
But just to be very transparent with people, because you're right, people don't know how to often respond to us. So they're really, I guess, turning to us for us to be very open about what we're thinking, what we're feeling.
Right.
That will give them an opportunity to respond and support you.
Right. You can have a family meeting and talk about what each person needs and the family as a whole. Or you can try and be gentle with yourself and family members during this time. So I think we know what the answer is to this one. Yeah. All of the above.
All of the above. Yes.
All of the above. Those are each very excellent answers. We will even tell people, keep a notepad and a list and write down what you need help with. Because people are always going to say, how can I help you? What do you need? And over time, as the rest of the world goes back to their life and you're still stuck in your new grief, in your new life, people will call you and say, how can I help? Well, you can pull up your list and you can say, hey, could you change the light on the front porch? Or could you check the oil in my car? Or run to the grocery, or take the dog to the, you know, groomer, whatever. But be prepared when people ask you.
Yeah, be on the ready. And often people will say, well, I hate to ask people for anything or receive support.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that we have people in our lives is because we too have been a dear and good friend to them. So they want to give that gift back to us. So we never want to deny that gift. So please open your hearts, allow people in and to receive that support.
Right, absolutely. And C is so critical. Please be gentle with yourself. We have all these expectations because at times grief makes us really uncomfortable, and it's hard. You know, when people lose their spouses, they will say to us time and time again, I had no idea how hard this was. I had no idea that this is what my parents went through. This is the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. And they have all these really grandiose ideas about how they're supposed to be not crying and happy and coping and remembering. And it's only been 6 months or 8 months or 12 months. I mean, you're only really getting on your feet in that first year. And then the reality of the fact that the first anniversary of your loved one's death is nothing magical, that now you begin the rest of your life, it's overwhelming for people.
And I think it's so important, this aspect of peer support that Gilda's offers, that you can be in a group dynamic where people are at different phases and stages of their loss, that they might be further along on their grief journey, that they can really bring you a sense of hope. Hope and healing is possible.
That they can do it themselves.
That they can do it, because it's so profound and overwhelming, you think you cannot get beyond it.
Right. And Kate and I have countless times worked with people, families who have experienced a very tragic loss or a very sudden
Mhm.
loss or a very prolonged journey of loss. And they think they will never feel peace again, or joy,
Mhm.
or happiness, or contentment. And we take them along over the course of a year, and they are new people.
Mhm.
Their life starts again, and they really do progress, don't they?
Yeah, and I think it surprises them when they start offering advice and care to others, like
Yeah.
the new people coming into the group.
Yeah.
Then they can realize and name that they are experiencing healing.
Yeah.
And that makes them incredibly hopeful.
Yeah, yeah. And you're so foggy in the beginning that 6 months later, when you see somebody else who's foggy, you'll say, "Oh my gosh, that was me.
Mhm.
It happened to me.
Mhm.
You know, I am normal." And you become this person in their new grief, their cheerleader and their coach. This is why it's so important for us to walk with each other on our grief journeys.
Mhm.
The American culture as a whole is so bad when it comes to talking about death and loss. So we want to help each other, walk with each other, support each other. So,
Because people will often say this heightens their sense of empathy and compassion,
Yeah.
like we're talking
Yeah.
about previously,
right,
which just opens you up to help others. And
Right.
that will trickle down, and people continue to help each other throughout this, which is
Right.
really beautiful.
Kate,
Yes.
I couldn't really hear that part. Every once in a while when you first start talking, we can't hear you for a second. So could you repeat that last bit?
As far as the trickle down effect, I was mentioning that people in group will often see that some things we come by way of knowing. So in going through the experience of grief, they really have a heightened sense of empathy and compassion for others. And they'll say, I had no idea that this is what it was like for people when they endured the death of a spouse. So they want to respond differently to care for others.
Right.
And that just continues to carry on and perpetuate through
Their
other
own
people.
healing.
Yeah, in their own healing, like you're saying, Lisa.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Okay, this next one here, true or false. Often at the holidays, old losses resurface and the grief feels fresh again. True or false?
Well, overwhelmingly, the answer is true. When we have a new loss, it will often remind us of prior losses, especially when you did not have the opportunity to make peace with and work through a prior loss. Maybe there were multiple losses. Maybe you were at a very hectic time in your life and you couldn't work through that grief. Maybe it was something so powerful or painful, you buried it because you couldn't face it.
Yep.
So here comes a new loss. Well, that prior loss is going to come forward and you're going to really have to face that, talk to others about it, and find support.
So we always have to move towards our grief, to experience that healing. Because as we're talking about, it will wait for us. And again, during the holiday times, because that's a time of gathering, as I mentioned earlier, with our loved ones, those most dear to us, of course, we're going to be reminded who's absent. So then we want to be certain to look for means of connection and meaning making to bring those people into that celebration and into our lives.
Right.
Okay, this next one, a to-do list. How do you help friends that are grieving?
Well, you could wait for them to call because you don't want to intrude.
You can call them and hint about helping them, hoping they respond.
You could call your friends and give them a specific list of how you can help them this holiday season.
Or you can avoid your friends. Anything you say will only make them feel worse.
So the proper answer is
Ta-da!
call your friends, talk to your friends, give them specific ideas how they can help you, and you can help them help you. people often don't know what to say, especially if they've
Mhm.
never experienced profound loss. So again, you are kind of their teacher. There is
Mhm.
nothing wrong with asking folks for help as you're moving along in your grief journey, because nobody is a car mechanic and a gardener and a plumber and a painter and on and on. Nobody expects you to know how to do all this stuff. So let your friends help you. Right?
Absolutely. And no one is
Yeah.
a mind reader. So
Oh,
we
yeah,
really
yeah,
have to communicate what we're thinking and feeling and what we might need that would be a help and comfort.
Right,
Put it out there.
right, right. Oh boy, the kids.
Mhm.
There's always lots of questions about what do we do about the kids and the grandkids, okay? So you are tired and hurting, yet you feel like you owe it to the kids to have a good holiday. So what do?
You can tell them that there will be no celebration this year and try to ignore the holidays.
You could choose some holiday traditions to do, like baking cookies, or setting up the tree,
You could start some new holiday traditions that aren't so painful.
or ignore your feelings. After all, the holidays are for the children, and you don't need to worry about your feelings.
And the last one, B and C.
Yeah. So clearly, the answer is E, B, and C. Choose those things that are going to be doable and enjoyable for all those involved. And maybe do something differently. You know, if you ate Christmas dinner in the evening, well, maybe do it during the day. Something as simple as that can make a big difference. You're not as tired, or eat less, so there's not so much cooking to do. There's all different things you can do in a different way.
And if there's snow, maybe sleigh riding if that's feasible for the family, just something fun for the kids.
Yeah.
It's just about being together.
Yeah. Who doesn't like a nice sleigh ride, right?
I'm in.
I know, me too. Call us up.
Yes.
Oh. Holidays should get better as time goes on. True or false? I think we all know the answer to this.
Yeah, so of course, we talked before about a softening of grief, and that softening of grief happens because we find the courage to turn towards our grief, towards that connection and love that we have for the other. And I think if we're intentional about tending to our feelings of love and loss, that's where the softening comes.
Right,
And that is, talking about your loved one, receiving the support from others.
right, right. Really important point. When you go to your holiday event, right off the bat, say, tell me a story about my loved one. I want
Yeah.
to hear their name. I want to say their name. So what if you cry? I mean, there's going to be tender moments, but because if you don't bring them up right off the bat, everyone's going to say, should I bring them up? Should I talk about them?
Yes.
What if I make her cry? I mean,
Mhm.
no. Right away, let's talk about our loved one who died. And then that also draws them into the event,
Yes.
and we remember them, we honor them, we tell stories, right?
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful if people want to share a special story
Yeah.
about their loved one. It's healing for you, it's healing for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So don't be shy, people. Okay. Tips for coping with grief. This is wonderful. And again, these will kind of just connect the dots in very broad strokes to kind of summarize all of this. Again, acknowledge and admit that the holidays are going to be different and you may have some pretty tough moments, and it's okay.
And what do we do when we have tough moments? We turn towards our support.
Right.
Family, friends, to
Right.
receive that comfort.
That's right. That's right.
And then, of course, we want to decide what traditions you want to keep and what traditions you want to change. And again, that's largely having an open communication with your family about, what are those traditions that you want to maintain that are really meaningful for you.
Right. And we often challenge our families to come up with new traditions that draws the loved one in who has died to that time together. Always addressing the elephant in the corner, always thinking about honoring, remembering, so thus creating a new tradition around the loved one. Because what? We now have a spiritual connection. The love between the one that has died and us who remain, it is that strong cord that connects you. So love, talk, share.
And then locations may provide comfort. You might want to keep them the same, or you may need to change them up.
Yep, whatever is easier.
Yes.
Plan ahead, plan ahead, plan ahead.
Yes.
And communicate with all those involved, you know, where you're going to spend the holidays, plan in advance to prevent any further stress. Because if you don't talk about it, everybody's going to be wondering, what are we going to do? Do we bring it up? Should we say something? Of course, we're going to do it the same way when maybe you don't even want to do it the same way. But they won't know, like you said, unless you talk about it. So.
Of course, you want to be honest and tell people what you do want to do for the holidays and what you don't want to do, kind of what you're indicating right there.
Yeah, and be honest with yourself, please. Be honest. Journaling when you're experiencing a bad day and you need to vent, because journaling is very therapeutic. We know that from some studies, if people who journal have a 40% increase in their healing. Because what are you doing? You're owning it, you're thinking about it, you're writing it down, maybe you speak it, you hear it, and you're processing the situation on all of those different levels. Date the entries so that you can come back and see the progress that you made.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then sometimes we encourage people to, whatever's on your mind and heart, to write that down, but write it to your beloved.
Yes.
Whomever has died. That could be a very meaningful process, and anticipate what they might respond to based on what you wrote.
Right.
And you can see healing that happens as a result of that as well.
Yeah, because people know how their loved ones react to them.
Definitely.
Oh yeah. So that's good. Of course, crying. Crying is okay. And there's going to be a lot of triggers, and who knows what's going to trigger the tears. We've all been there. It's okay to cry.
Yes, the thoughts and emotions connected.
Yes.
But again, that's that love breaking through. So allow that to happen, receive love and support around you to help you best cope.
Right.
And then of course, shop online if going to the mall is too stressful.
Yes. Streamline everything about your holiday, even gift giving. Make it easy on yourself, please. And write lots of lists so you can keep track of yourself and what needs to be done. Keep a pad everywhere, carry a notepad with you, whatever you need to do to get the job done.
And then say yes to help. Like Lisa was saying, no man is an island. There will be people who want to help and may offer their support. Take them up on their offers.
Yeah.
Allow people to love and support you.
Right. Really important. And again, our self-care, practice good self-care. It sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Whatever you need to do to recharge and fill up, do it. Grief and loss are always going to mean change. And so we become so depleted where it's like we're running on empty. So how can you maintain balance, wellness, and health if you're running on fumes, on empty? So do those things that fill up your spirit and your heart, that make you happy, that are beautiful, that allow you to use your creativity. You have to do things for yourself on that level, because nobody knows what your heart and your spirit need. You have to do it for yourself.
And we all need reprieve from our grief. And we need those moments where we turn away from it as well.
Right.
To restore our spirit, to care for ourselves, mind, body, and spirit.
Right. It's like
Whatever
it's
that
an
is.
emotional vacation, a little time out.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, go ahead.
And then to prioritize and don't overcommit. When the
Right.
holidays are filled with so many parties, dinners, and events, save your energy. That's what's most important to you. Look at everything you have to do and rank them in order of importance.
Yeah. And what you don't want to do, skip it. Really.
Exactly.
It's okay. It's okay
Mhm.
to skip certain things. Simplify, simplify, simplify. But even though you're simplifying, still make a plan, because making a plan kind of demystifies things. It helps us cope with what we need to accomplish, and you can cross things off as you go, and it gives you a feeling of success, you know, and change it up, do something new, do something different, right?
Yes.
Right,
And planning kind of creates a sense of safety and comfort.
right. Oh, yeah, that's really good. Yeah, yeah. And people, when they have had a loved one die, very often they have more time on their hands. They have a new sense of freedom on a certain level, so you can do new things that you've never perhaps had the opportunity to do before.
Revisit some old pastimes, maybe.
Yeah.
That you didn't have time for.
Yeah. I think this is one of the most important things as we kind of come to a close
is.
here. Please enjoy yourself. Yes, there are going to be times when the holidays are tough, but you can have moments of joy and love and peace, and don't feel guilty about it. What is the number one thing that those who are dying tell us? What do they want for their loved
Their
one?
greatest concern is that their loved ones are happy.
Say it again.
The greatest concern that they have is that their loved ones will be happy, because, you know, love is all about selflessness, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
want what is best for you.
Yeah. So would you please allow yourself to be happy and to have moments of joy? So important. It's okay to be happy. This does not diminish how much you love your beloved. And yes, you're going to miss them. They're not going to be here for the holiday. Don't feel guilty for finding some peace and happiness. You deserve
Well
it,
said. Yes.
right?
They would
Yeah.
want that for you.
Yes, yes. We're always seeking balance. Yeah. You want to read that? Go ahead.
Sure. This is a lovely quote. Grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness nor a lack of faith. Grief is the price of love.
Then I think we just have some resources here.
Right. These are terrific. We wanted to put a couple of our favorite resources up for you all. There's a great book by Dr. Alan Wolfelt about managing grief in the holidays, and one by James Miller, How Will I Get Through the Holidays? On the bottom, you'll see there are 3 websites that are just terrific resources on grief in general, grief in the holidays. The 2 books above are marked which website you can find them at. But there is so much out there, Kelly, about grief and loss and the holidays. And, you know, please do look for those resources. We don't want you to go through this by yourself or alone. No.
Well, thank you so much. Let me add myself in here. Thank you so much for all this great information, and we really do appreciate it. I think that we will say goodbye to the Facebook Live crowd. If you have any questions, just give us a call, 563-326-7504.